Morning Talk with Siki Mgabadeli.
And it's 8 minutes past 9 here on SAFM, South Africa's news and information leader. We're talking about youth optimism in South Africa. My guests are Shirley Wakefield, who is a spokesperson of Pondering Panda. She joins us from our studios in Cape Town. And Lerato Manya is a young person and is here she's going to share with us her story and also just her experiences of being young post 1994. She penned a very interesting column. I wish I had time to read it out for you, but I might be able to send it to you should you just send me an email to siki@safm.co.za, and then I'll forward it to you. But it's titled A Born-Free Generation Held Captive. Thank you so much to both of you for your time this morning.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Siki.
And Shirley, let me start with you, and let's maybe touch on the survey that you conducted. What were you trying to establish exactly?
Well, Siki, perhaps I could just create a little bit of context here by letting you know sort of who we are and what we do. We're a consumer insights company that focuses on the youth of South Africa, and we're constantly polling opinions and attitudes towards all sorts of different topics of interest to young people in South Africa. We really focus on that 15 to 34 age group, and when I'm talking, I'm not really talking about honing in on the deep rural or older people within South Africa. It's really that sort of middle band within the South African youth, which makes up about 54% of the country's population.
Okay.
What we did was we've been running the youth Hope Index for almost a year now, every couple of months, and constantly tracking how optimistic young people are about their future in South Africa. And it's been very interesting to see that over the months and up until about July this year, we noticed that it was very, very stable with hardly any difference in optimism levels amongst young people in the country. What we do is we ask them whether or not they think South Africa will be a better or a worse place to live in 10 years' time.
Yeah. And
typically it's been quite stable, with 54% of youngsters saying that it would be better and about 46% saying that it would be worse. So optimistic on balance, but only by really sort of a narrow margin.
And that's a small margin. In your latest one, there was a 3% drop?
Yes, and that's the first drop that we've seen, which has been very interesting. And by a margin, I would say, yes, as you say, 3%. And when you start sort of digging down a bit deeper, it's really interesting to see that when you look at the differences amongst the different races within South Africa, on balance, young black South Africans are more optimistic than other races by quite a large margin. So in the most recent index, we saw young black South Africans saying, about 58% of them saying that, yes, in 10 years' time, my future in South Africa will be brighter. Whilst amongst coloured South Africans, it's 42%, white 33%, and Indian 26%.
Can you give us a sense of the questions that are asked in the survey?
Well, we just focus on 2 questions in this survey, so we really try and keep it quite simple. The first one, like I said, is looking about how optimistic they are about their future. And then the second one, we say, well, what worries you most about your future in South Africa? And that's where you can start unpacking the issues that are really top of mind and pertinent for the youth.
Okay.
And we've seen quite interesting shifts there, again, within our most recent release. So previously, up until July, we saw unemployment coming out tops, and that has remained stable. And it remains stable, and it remains the hottest topic amongst young South Africans. Then we saw crime coming out second, corruption coming out third, and education coming out fourth. Now, the biggest change that's happened over the last couple of months is that politics, which came out or was ranked 8th amongst the issues that concern people the most in previous surveys, in the most recent one, that jumped up to 3rd place. So after unemployment and crime, all of a sudden politics has entered the frame of reference for youngsters, saying, hang on a second, this is starting to concern me more.
Why do you think that is? I mean, when you conducted this, was it around the time of the Marikana massacre?
Well, it was in September.
In September, yeah.
And so, yes, there's a hell of a lot going on from an economic point of view, from a labour unrest point of view. But what we've been seeing is with our polling of opinions on a range of different topics, that confidence levels around leadership seem to be dropping, and I guess that's exasperated by concerns with a lot of the recent labour unrest.
That's interesting. Let's bring Lerato into this conversation. And maybe, Lerato, before we talk about what you make of the survey, and I see you nodding when Shirley tells us that politics jumped from 8th place to 3rd place. But before that, let's touch a little bit on your column. As I said, it was very interesting reading. Why did you feel strongly enough to put your thoughts down?
I've literally been saying this stuff for a while, and I never thought I had it in me to actually write something that could have as much of an effect as it had. And for me, it was about a debate that we had about 2 days ago that morning that I actually published the article that actually set me off. And I was just like, you know what? I'm tired of hearing the same thing every single day. It's time someone says something and gets it out there. And it was terrifying. I was scared to publish it because of my opinions and how strongly I feel. And I was more prepared for a negative response than what I was for a positive response. But it had to be said.
And how did your peers respond? Firstly, what did you say? Let's maybe just crystallize your column, because I said I'm not going to have time to read the whole thing. But what was the crux of it, really?
Basically, it was just, I feel like we're being let down. We are constantly reminded of apartheid. We are constantly reminded of race. Every single debate, argument, justification is always the same thing. And I'm at that point right now where I feel like you cannot keep justifying what's happening now with the past. At some point, you have to look at the problems that we're having now and focus on those problems right now. I feel like most of us are just tired of hearing the same justifications over and over again. And at the end of the day, someone needs to say something. Someone has to have said something. And I feel like I got as much of a response as I could. And I'm very happy with the response. But I also feel like it's not over. It's nowhere near over. There's a lot that still needs to go on and happen in this country before we can actually say, okay, we're moving forward.
So what was the response from your peers?
I had a lot of positive, good writing, and a lot of people were saying it's about time someone said this. And it's about time that someone was able to explain to our parents what we have been trying to say. And for me, it got to a point where I was too scared, because I know my parents were also involved in apartheid, and they suffered. And it just got to a point where I was just like, at the end of the day, it's my opinion, and I need to say something, because I can't keep keeping it inside.
I get the sense from the column that you feel that the older generation who face the full might of apartheid guilt trip those of us who are too young to have remembered what had happened or were just not born yet.
Yes. I just feel like we're constantly reminded of it. At some point, we are trying to focus on what's happening right now. I ask questions because I want to understand what it is they're trying to do. What are they trying to say to me? And if you cannot answer my simple questions, then there's a problem.
What sort of questions?
I ask, why do we have a 30% pass rate? Why is our pass rate so low? We have matriculants passing with 30%, getting to varsity and expecting to get a 50% pass rate in order to qualify to pass just basic subjects. And for me, it's like, why is that okay? Why are we okay with having such a low pass rate? Why are we okay with textbooks not being delivered to students? Why are we okay with corruption? Why are we okay with our leaders using taxpayers' money to almost fund their own personal lifestyles? It's very frustrating to read about the same thing over and over again. And I have friends overseas, and when they ask me questions, it's like, I need to defend my entire country. I cannot keep defending a country that I'm losing faith in.
And you're losing faith.
I'm losing faith. I really am. It's just, I can't keep defending something that I feel like they're not listening. It's like, there's a lot of young people whose voices want to be heard, and there's no real platforms where they can say, okay, this is what you can do.
Does this ring true for you, Shirley? Because I think it almost underpins the findings of your own survey.
Absolutely, it does ring true. And, Lerato, I've also been sitting here just nodding my head listening to you. And I think you're quite right. It's so important that there's some kind of platform for young people to express their opinions and share their thoughts and suggestions on these topics and these issues that are affecting all of us. And that's been quite an interesting process for us, being in the position to gather opinion from thousands upon thousands of young people on a daily basis on these topics. And it's early days for us, but having been in the position of tracking these opinions for about the last year or so, it's an incredible position to be in, to say, hang on a second, we're now getting a really strong sense of the issues that are really concerning young people. Now let's see what we can start doing about it.
And talking about what to do about it, I mean, the fact that politics has jumped to third place in the most recent survey, this Youth Hope Index, I just wonder, because a lot of things in this country are politicized, right? Things that shouldn't be politicized turn into, I mean, I know that sitting in this chair Monday to Friday every day and hearing South Africans debate amongst themselves, that everything becomes politicized. And we have a lot of youth political formations. And I always ask this question when I have a young person in front of me. For those who are not politically inclined, who aren't interested in politics, who speaks for them?
It's a good question. It's a very good question, because we have the older generation speaking for the younger generation. We have young people who've almost had the hatred from what's happened passed down. And at the end of the day, I feel like there's a lot of young people that are still very, very angry, and that's justifiable. It's completely understandable. Your family suffered, and maybe you haven't had the same opportunities that I have, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, we don't all feel like we need to completely keep using apartheid as an excuse, because that's what it is. It's now an excuse. You are not delivering. We need to have our stuff delivered. We need our students to actually build themselves and build their own futures. Because at the end of the day, whatever happens, whatever system comes into place, the youth are the future, and they're going to carry this country forward. So if you, the older generation, are not willing to listen to what we have to say, then what are you expecting for South Africa? How are you expecting us to progress?
There was a lot of debate a few years ago about youth apathy. People saying, the youth don't care, they just want to have fun, they're into this bling lifestyle and so on. What do you say to that? Because there is this perception among some, and I'll read some of the Facebook messages that I got here as well, that young people, all they care about is an easy life and expect the government to do everything for them. What would you say to that?
I completely disagree. I feel like we're fighting a struggle because we want better for ourselves. And we don't all want this bling lifestyle. We don't all want to be famous. We don't all want this whole party lifestyle, drinking, partying all the time. Some of us actually want to build something that when we look back at our lives, we can say, okay, I built this legacy for my kids and I'm proud of it. Some of us are just tired of, for me personally, I'm not a party person. It's not for me. I'm not always out every weekend. It's just not for me. That's not the kind of person I am. But I also feel like you do need to do it. You do need to party at some point. You do need to have experience that.
As the older people have done themselves.
You need to experience that, and it will help you as a person. It will build you later on.
I must agree with you, Lerato. I think, and they're not mutually exclusive. Young people are they're gonna be out partying, but that's absolutely not to say that they don't have dreams and they do not want to get really involved in their future in South Africa. And, we asked young people recently whether or not they were planning on voting in the next elections. And 60% said yes, definitely. And about 30% said no, they wouldn't bother. But despite these intentions to vote, they still kind of said, well, about 50% of them said, we're not quite sure whether there's much point, though, because nothing ever changes. And I think that's a theme that seems to come through time and time again. We do ask them quite regularly, do you feel that government is sticking to their promises and on the deliverables that they've agreed to? And the resounding feeling is that it's a big no.
And on this question of youth apathy, that's not the sense I get. I think that was disproved in the last national elections with the increase in the number of votes from younger people.
Absolutely. And, what we've seen is that just by giving somebody that doesn't typically have a platform or an easy platform to express their opinions and get involved more, it's amazing to see that once you do provide this opinion, that people really start speaking out. By way of an example, on any given topical survey that we are putting out there, we're receiving between 1,000 and 3,000 responses every 24 hours without any form of incentive whatsoever. The only incentive for young people is that they know that their opinion is going to be shared by doing so.
All right, we're going to take calls on 0891 104 207, 0891 104 207, SMSs 34701. I know it's a Friday and we should be more optimistic, but this is an important issue. So let's hear from you. Let's start with Jasmine in Johannesburg. Hi, Jasmine.
Hi, Nsiki. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Thank you for taking my call. I know you work on time management. I'll be very short and
Thank
sweet.
you.
Look, I'm very proud of what that young girl is saying, but what disturbs me is it's true. One should express their feelings, but I feel she's expressing too much of negative instead of making a positive change. She says that the youth are the ones to carry the country, which is obvious, and she knows that government is a group of nincompoops, obviously fighting each other and stealing and whatever the case may be, not to be judgmental, but at the same time, she also mentioned that she's losing faith. So if you want to make a change in the country and you have a low faith level, at the same time, you're standing on board on behalf of the youth to talk and say that we are the ones to carry the country. You need to be stronger, and at the same time, instead of exposing the negative qualities, apartheid, we all were affected by that, but that's in the past. Leave the past to be buried. Let's try to make the positive change that can show that we can be a valuable contribution to the to our country. So thank you very much, Nsiki.
Thanks, Jasmine. I'll put that to Lerato in a moment. Edwin in George, good morning.
Very good morning to you, Siki, and to listeners. Look, I think it was either Thabo Mbeki or Dali Tambo who said the biggest mistake here, because we have unhappy youth because of depression and unemployment things, is to give us a culture of dependency instead of expressing things in the way that it's our right to earn and deserve. So that we work for our country with love and enthusiasm and devotion. Enthusiasm, theos, means God in Greek. It's God in you. Consider the kibbutzim in early Israel. People didn't go and say, give me, give me. They worked with love and devotion and built the desert sand into something, producing food and their own homes and so forth. We have a huge reservoir, I keep talking about, of unemployed is worth an enormous amount. If that love and devotion, they could be put to work with tokens redeemable for their everyday needs, go into sandwich schemes where they can learn as well, and build their own houses, provide their own services and food. We wouldn't have crime, we wouldn't have sickness, we wouldn't have all sorts of things, and we go forward together. Otherwise, we have a danger of giving our children envy, spite, banditry, and sloth.
All right. Thanks, Edwin. Ngleba in Midrand. Hi, Ngleba.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
I'm okay. Thanks for taking my call. I want to add on what we on the show. I'm a young person, and sometimes I get so very frustrated about this country. But one thing that I believe in is that black and white, especially as young people. I'm 35 this year, I believe that if we can start our own organization, and stop blaming the old folks and all those things, starting to rebuild ourselves. We look at each other, we forget about the color, and we start to work to change the attitude. And whatever that the government is doing, because what I'm looking at now, all people, they are in politics. Okay, those things happen. We don't disagree with that, but the reality is that they are looting the money now. They are looting the money instead of taking the money, taking the money, giving us as young people the chance to prove ourselves. I mean, I am a young person.
Yeah.
I don't smoke. I don't drink. I try to live according to the rules and according to the standards, where I can show other young people how to live. But I don't have a space as a young person. I find myself asking myself sometimes why I'm so honest. You know, I always listen to your show. One time Kolan was interviewing this guy from Department of Correctional Service. They are talking about rebuilding the people from the jails and all those things, and they're forgetting us as young people here. We start smoking drugs. I mean, sometimes I get so frustrated in a way that I think that even it's better if I'm dead than to see what is happening now.
Oh no!
They have robbed us after '94. They have robbed us everything.
All right.
They are looting their money.
You're talking about youth starting their own organization. Would that be a political organization? What sort of organization?
No. It's a civil organization.
A civil organization, okay.
Yes, black and white. We forget about the color. I wish sometimes, when I look at my brother's white folks, and I ask myself, when they look at we look at the life, not all of us as black people, we are privileged to have all the luxury.
Yeah.
We are having the same problem that they have. The problem is this: there is that wall that was not break.
Okay.
I think if we can break that wall, where blacks and white, we can meet somewhere as young men, young people, start to rebuild ourselves and forget about these old folks who are looting the money.
All right. Thanks, Nweba. Thanks for your call, Nan. Please remain hopeful. I don't like this talk of death. Let me read some SMSs. I'll take more calls and then I'm going to give Shirley and Lerato a chance to respond. Terence in Kimberley says the reason why the youth have lost hope in Mzansi is youth unemployment that is on a high level. Solomzi in Cape Town says the problem is we have a lack of transformation in all levels. Jay in Durban says I can't believe Indians are less optimistic than whites. How hypocritical of them. Sajin Ndenze says there's no future for the youth in South Africa. In 20 years to come, this country will be like Somalia. Our leaders are clueless. Ellen says it is not the youth only who are losing hope. The government takes no notice of the voice of the people. Help. And someone says it's not true that those who get a 30% pass in anything then expect to get a 50% pass at university, because those in fact do not qualify to get into university. Now, I think what Lerato meant is that if you set the expectation at 30% during high school, then when they go to university, the expectation there is 50%, but they're used to only targeting 30%. So let's not misunderstand what she meant. And someone says, for Lerato, do you support Juju's stance? Juju's stance on what? Is the question I'm asking. So could you SMS back what that stance is? And Nozi in Durban says, totally agree 100% with Lerato. I'm a black South African and I want to immigrate for my son's sake. Politicians are killing our lovely. It's 27 minutes to 10. I'm going to take one more call from Busi because she's been holding on for a while, and then I'm going to give my guest a chance to respond before we take more. Busi in Durban, hi.
Hi, good day, Siggy. How are you?
I'm well, thanks, Busi.
Good, thanks. I think basically it's a pity that the numbers, even though we have a lot of people that are not optimistic, but if you had to dig deeper, the numbers would be very high of young people that do not believe in this country anymore. What seems to be taking place here is that if you look at our unemployment figures, I mean, if you're a young person, you know that even if you go to varsity, you're still not guaranteed a job. It doesn't matter what qualification you have. But on top of it all, you look at the rampant corruption that's taking place. I mean, the Zuma Nkandla thingy has definitely affected all of us, young and old, because you look at us who are currently employed, that we taxpayers, but we don't see service delivery. Whenever you drive around the squatter camp, it's still the same way it was many years ago, you know. So there is absolutely nothing to be optimistic about. Yeah, so at the end of the day, and you look at the people that died in Marokana, many of them were young people, some of them even had matric. Because there were no jobs in the country, there was absolutely no opportunity for them. They had to go and work in the mines. So basically, we are worse off than better off at the moment. And there's also this thing that is being put out there that it seems like we all black people are cool about what's happening in the country. We definitely aren't.
There's no
Our
homogenous feelings there. Yeah, people
Sorry.
what I'm saying is
Yes.
people mustn't think that we all feel the same, just like we don't think
Exactly.
everyone thinks the same.
Exactly. And also when you look at the electoral system, it doesn't give us that much opportunity to actually say, okay, if we're not happy with party A, we're going to move on to party B. Because if you look at the opposition in the country, I still don't understand. We had this discussion last night with my dad. My dad misses the old days. He believes that back in the days, if you pitched up to any other company and you were looking for a job, a white person would give you a job. But nowadays, people are taking their kids to varsity. They come up with diplomas and degrees. They still can't get jobs. But now the problem that we have is, even with the other parties, the opposition, I don't understand what they can do for me right now as a person who's currently fed up with what is happening. Because what we're getting from the DA is just that their policies are the carbon copy of what the ANC is doing. You know,
So there's
you
no
have a lot of
difference.
people in the middle here who are saying if there could be somebody who will come up and address what is happening. We agree corruption is there, it shouldn't be there, but who is coming with anything right now to actually take us out of this situation?
All right. Thanks, Busi. Thanks for your call this morning. No? All right. Let me give my guests a chance to respond. Then I'll go to Rob and White River. And let me start with you, Shirley. Lots of pessimism on this Friday morning.
Sure, you're quite right. I was just thinking, the general mood across all the calls and the SMSs is definitely not one of bountiful optimism.
No.
And it's really been mirrored in a recent index that we've just started. So it's the first of what will become many national mood indexes. And whilst we saw 48% of respondents, that's almost 4,000 respondents, saying that they were happy, the remaining 62% said that they were either stressed, sad, or depressed. So there really is this resounding feeling of not feeling content with where we're at, and a real sense of needing more from our leaders. I think this element of inaction amongst leaders and more words than action is falling on deaf ears these days, and it's really. Yeah, I mean, tolerance is reducing at a rate of knots. What we're also seeing is that when you ask young people, how likely would you be to live somewhere else? Would you like to live somewhere else and immigrate at some stage? And 25%, so that's a quarter of young people, said that they would prefer to live somewhere else at some stage. There's a real concern around this of the brain drain. We're getting educating people, and they're coming up through the ranks, can't find any form of work and no form of support, and they're going to leave.
Loretta?
I'd just like to quote something I actually wrote in this piece. So yes, I am a born free. I am a free thinker. I question things. I analyze situations. I conclude and use that as my basis for my opinion. If not agreeing to everything you say means I am no longer black enough or African enough, then I take on that title wholeheartedly. My ideals and opinions might be arrogant in your eyes, but so are you in calling yourself a hero. What is a great man without love for mankind? And for me, the real issue is we are losing faith, but we're still giving them chances over and over again. How many more chances are we going to give them before they start delivering? We are at a point in our country where we need those deliveries. We need the services to be delivered because we need to reinstill our faith in our leaders. But if the leaders are not prepared to do it, then why should we have faith in them? And at the end of the day, we need to, it's almost like every time the elections come up, then they want to push service delivery. The rest of the time, it's nothing. Why is it that they only want to deliver a couple of months before the elections and don't deliver the rest of the time? Instead, we're hearing more and more stories of corruption. And it's affecting our country because we've got other investors from other countries that want to come and invest in our country. And if all you're getting about South Africa is a negative opinion, why would you invest in something like that? It's too much of a risk.
Let's hear from Rob, then White River. Hi, Rob.
Morning, Siggy, and to your guests. To me, Lerato is a new dawn. It's a breath of fresh air. Take strength from the people who support you, who listen to what you're saying. I'm a geriatric colonial. I came to this country in 1970 with 700 Rand in my pocket, and I've lived here ever since. I'm 73 or 4 now, and to me, I've seen a decline in this country in the last 5 years that could never have been foreseen. I know that I've benefited from apartheid, from colonialism, and all the rest of it, and I try not to be blinkered into what everybody has done that should not have been done. But we have to move forward, and what Lerato and you three have been saying is a wonderful thing for me. There is an immense movement, a groundswell of people who want to change. And if somebody comes to me and says, teach me, I teach him all I can. There are so many people that want to do it. Take courage from that, and please do not give up. Don't go away. My children are overseas as well, and I miss them, but I don't want to move. And just go on the way you are, fight for what you believe, and you will get there. There are political parties that have started up from grassroots, maybe 6 months before a general election, that have walked right through and taken it over. That is a possibility.
Thanks,
Remember
Rob.
that, and remember to take strength from the atmosphere around you, the people that believe in you. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Fakey in Cape Town. Hi, Fakey.
Hi, Siki.
Hi there.
You're the lucky one that breaks my deliberate conscious absence from the airwaves for 3 years.
I haven't heard you in a while.
Thank you. It's my birthday today.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank you, my dear. And what a wonderful gift from Lerato and you and your program for me on my birthday.
Oh.
That's why I decided to call. I agree entirely with the diagnosis of the last caller as well as your guest in the studio. That there is so much downhill movement of our country in the last few years, and there is also so much, whilst there's a downhill movement, there is an upswell of dismay, astonishment, anger, which is a good thing that, and that's from both black and white. It's a good thing that people are saying, stop, things are not okay. However, I would like to advise Lerato and others as young people and old people and everybody that it's our responsibility, yes, to do their diagnosis, which they have done excellently. The next step is to give people hope so that they must know that the solution is entirely in their hands. The masses are their own liberators. They must be, they always have been, and they should be. And history is calling on South African today like never before to seize the moment, to seize the opportunity that is presenting to yourselves as South Africans to recorrect your country, to rebuild it. And it's useless to cry about the electoral system.
Yeah.
Politicians, us, we are not going to change the electoral system. It suits us.
It suits you.
It's civil society, it's young people who must demand in the loudest of their voices that what they want should happen.
All right.
If you beg political parties to change the electoral system, it's not going to happen. It's in your hands. Thank you, Siki.
Thanks, and happy birthday. Have a great day. Bye-bye. Fumani Seganayim, I'll come to you in a moment. Apply.
Morning Talk with Siki Mgabadeli.
This is SAFM 104 to 107. I'll take calls in a moment. Lots of tweets. Tusani wants to know, Lerato, if there's any other way that he can get hold of your article other than by email.
On News 24 on Twitter, it was actually tweeted.
Okay.
The article is called "A Born Free Generation Held Captive," and it was actually tweeted on News 24. All
right. So just do a search on News 24, Netusani. And Temba says, talk about beauty and brains. Lerato on SAFM with Siki Mgabadeli. And someone says, we thank bloggers and Twitter. Now these issues are being spoken about. And that is from @Mpo. Interesting, the call, Shirley, from Fakey about the political system. And as she's right, it suits our politicians. So if we keep begging them to change it, they're not going to do it. And she says maybe we need to move from begging to actually just taking some action.
Absolutely. And I think young people are entirely equipped to do so, as Lerato has demonstrated so beautifully.
Do they feel powerful?
You know, I think deep down inside they do. I think there is a groundswell now with all of the pessimism that's happening. I think there's a groundswell that is gaining some momentum of young people saying, right, our tolerance is wearing thin. We are the ones that are going to need to do something about this. And I find it fairly ironic that parents and communities teach our youth about loyalty and integrity. They teach them of honesty and of character. But when our youth look up at our leadership, they don't see these characteristics shining through.
And for you, Lerato, I mean, Faith is saying that, don't lose faith. In fact, the next step really is to give people hope. How do you move from the loss of faith to actually becoming hopeful?
For me, it's actually been the response from the article, just me personally, because I thought, oh, my voice is never going to be heard. It's going to be another one article that I'm going to post and no one's going to see it. And I feel like people telling me that I'm heading on the right track changed a little bit of my perception, where I was like, okay, hang on. You've started a debate. You need to push it through. And you need to make sure that it's your voice that gets heard, but you're also speaking on behalf of so many other young people. And I feel like we have to ask our politicians to actually deliver. We cannot keep saying, oh, it's okay, you didn't deliver, it's okay. We can carry on and act like, oh, it's fine, whatever. We're tired of hoping and waiting on you guys to actually do something. Don't tell us what you're going to do. Do it. Do it so we can say, hey, hang on, they're doing something. They're reinstilling our faith in them as politicians.
And only action is going to do that.
Action speaks louder than words 1,000,000 times over and over and over again.
Some SMSs. Hi, Siki. In this country, we like talking around in circles. The problem is in Lutuli House, Finish and Clar. Someone says, Siki, what does one mean when they say nothing is done? How many millions of houses built and electrified? We take things for granted. Brian Kumalo in Maritzburg says it's a pity that young people who participate in ANC structures are ill-informed, uneducated, and are being used by leaders to climb a ladder. Leanne says the DA might have similar policies, but the difference is that they are workers, not only talkers. And one says the government needs to fear the people. And Lynn Gibson in Durban says, why don't you vote for a different party next time? The only way there will be change is if you change yourself and your vote. And let's talk a little bit about that, because we did talk about, politics. And I'm sure, Lynn, you heard Nceba from Midrand, how quickly when I said, is he forming a political party, he went, no, no, no. That says to me that young people are losing faith in the political system itself. And the survey, I think, Shirley, correct me if I'm wrong, in one of your surveys, the young people were saying that they might not even vote.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So almost a third of young people saying, look, I don't even think I'm going to bother because nothing really changes.
So it's not helpful to say change the party that you are voting for, because if people are just going to withhold their vote in the first place, then we're not going to solve the situation. Ish says, if apathetic youth want to help build a new nation that does things differently, they should support Tellinger's new Ubuntu party that is challenging the status quo. In fact, we did speak to Mr. Tellinger not too long ago about that party. Tendai says, wow, what a breath of fresh air from these two ladies. Yes, we are all tired of the apartheid being used as an excuse for an inferior government. Let's vote them out. Someone says, wow, girls, you echo my thoughts. Ashley in Cape Town says, Lerato needs to start a political movement. She has my support.
That's what I was thinking.
And someone says, society today and all its institutions are in systematic decay. The J-curve phenomenon. Like the dinosaurs, rich or poor, black or white, none will come out alive. Yo, that's very dark.
It's morbid.
That's very dark.
It's so morbid.
Colin says, why can't Zuma engage with the youth once a month like he does with Big Business on Morning Live? They are our future. And someone says, why does Lerato not start her own movement? And Marie says, why are pensioners running the country? Young people, start your own organization. Admire this young lady. Sing in Randburg. Morning.
Good morning, Siki. I'm so pleased to hear these things, and it imbues me with optimism. And I'm an inveterate pessimist.
Yeah, I know.
Because I see the whole country going down the Zimbabwe slide to self-destruction, and I'm so pleased to hear, and it imbues me with optimism. I'm so pleased to hear the people who are incensed at the self-destruction that is happening, and it's so wonderful. The only thing that disturbs me deeply is that this is happening at a time when Julius Malema and Floyd Shivambu's freedom fighters, the new freedom fighters who pretend to be fighting for economic freedom when they're fighting for dictatorship for themselves, to exploit the poor, they are the tenderpreneurs who have corrupted all of Limpopo, and they've got billions to pay the protesters with, who are running riot at Marikana and all of these gold mines as well now, and who are destroying our currency, and who are fighting off, who are scaring off any sensible foreign investor and even local investors, and they are doing this by actually killing people who don't go to strikes.
Okay. Yeah.
And at Marikana and on all of these gold mines, they are terrorizing innocent workers. And this is Floyd Shivambu and Julius Malema doing that.
I understand that what you're trying to do is to describe what's going on in South Africa at the moment, but I don't want us to derail this conversation and land up talking about
No, it is optimistic.
Shivambu.
It is optimistic by virtue of the fact that it addresses these things.
Okay.
And you must look at The Economist, what The Economist has been saying. Anybody can access it over the internet.
All right, I've got to go, Sig. I've got to go. Fumani in Soweto, morning.
Siki, the tragedy that Lerato sounds exactly almost like Sig. Without making a criticism of African parents taking kids to schools where the overwhelming majority of the teachers are not like their parents, they will obviously imbibe certain attitudes that we do. For example, I do not know one progressive country that is run by youth. And our country, like all the other countries in Africa after the end of colonialism, has been run by youth. In fact, has been run by older white people and young Africans. So you cannot just say it's a youth thing.
I don't understand, Fumani, what you mean.
We did not have a chance of looking back at where we come from. We're busy with reconciliation, and I'm not saying it's wrong, so that we remain a divided community. When different communities speak, you can pick up. I see they're joined by our children now, because I'm not young, who go to the schools where they are taught by this divided society. Now, finally, when I arrived in the UK in the 1970s, there was color blindness. In the 1980s, through Ken Livingstone, there was a movement to personalize racialism and race. There was a debate. Come back home, I find that there's color blindness since 1994, and we remain a divided society.
All right, you know what I'm going to do? Thanks, Fumani. What I'm going to do, and I want you to listen on the radio, I'm going to read a part of Lerato's column, which I think addresses what you've just been saying now, and I'm quoting now. And she says, you say I am not black enough because I speak so eloquently. I do not appeal to the general public. My thought process is dangerous and has the ability to contaminate the minds of the general public. By saying that I do not appeal to the general public, what do you mean? That my English is too good for those without an English education to understand? Yet you forget that I can so eloquently speak in my mother tongue. Would you like to respond to Fumani?
Honestly, I think that's basically how I feel. Honestly speaking, you cannot say that because I choose to respond in English that I have abandoned and turned my back on my race, because it's the exact opposite. If I didn't care, then this wouldn't have been written. If I carried on and lived a naive life and carried on like nothing affects me, then this article would never have come about. And I feel like we need to stop justifying it as our youth are turning their backs on their race, because we're not. We're trying to move forward and progress in a way that almost fuses the older generation's ideals and our ideals. We're trying to find a meeting point. But if you constantly tell us that we are not good enough, we're not black enough, what are you implying? What are you saying? What do you want from us? There is no country run by a young person. Yes, I completely agree. But if my ancestor can change and cause a movement, why is that not possible for me? Why can I not do it? If I believe in myself, then what's stopping you from believing in me?
All right. I'm going to take 2 final calls, and then Shirley and Loretta will give you your final words. And I'm going to ask my callers to be as brief as possible. Naeem in Alberton, morning.
Hello, greetings to you and your guests. I can understand the frustration that they are expressing, but I fear they are missing the point slightly. It's not a South African problem, it's a global problem. And the problem is not the South African government, it's all governments. It's actually the corporatization of governments. It's not only the corporatization of governments, it's the corporatization of everything, of health, of public services, so it's this whole privatization. Arundhati Roy refers to it in a very good way. She says it's, previously we had horizontal colonialism. Now we've got vertical colonialism. Governments of each country colonize their own people in the interest of big multinational corporations. And it's happening in India, what's happening in Greece is typical of what is happening throughout the world. Okay. It's more noticeable in Greece and it's more extreme in Greece, but it's happening throughout the world and it's going to get worse. So the problem is not the ANC per se. The ANC has unfortunately bought into this whole corporatization. They made the deal with Anglo-American and the big boys. And so it's a corporatization of politics and of government that's the problem.
All right, thanks, Naeem. I'm going to take one final call. Tabeo in Randburg, please be brief for me. Morning.
Hi, Siki. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Please be brief.
I will try to be very brief. Just not to get too much into it, I just want to say we shouldn't really just move away from the most important issues in Loretta's article. These are conversations that I hate bringing up the race card, young black South Africans are having at dinner parties, and this is a collective view. When we talk of such issues, we frown upon because we challenging and we are seen as disrespectful. I think the most important issue here is to go back, really look at this article and raise these issues. And I'm very glad that you open these lines and that we can engage as young people, because these are, questions that need to be answered. We are a very, very disturbed young South African. We are not heard. And I think Loretta just raised very important issues, and I'm in awe. I'm just so inspired. I just wish let's not lose focus. Let this article reach the core of it, of its being, and actually just be attended to, is what I would just like to say. And I'm
sorry to be out of time. Thank you. Thanks for that. Shirley, final word from you?
I think my final word is just to Loretta to say, well done. We work with thousands of opinions of young people across the country on a daily basis, not just highlighting, the conversations that are happening around dinner tables with the elite few, but what the real sense of young people are around the country. And it's so nice to have somebody that has stood up and personified these attitudes so beautifully as Loretta has. So well done.
Loretta?
Honestly, like, I have nothing to say. I'm actually in such shock right now that so many people were listening, and my Twitter has gone absolutely crazy.
It's gone mad.
It's flooded with just mentions and people saying thank you. I'd just like to say one thing. When you analyze the situation in our country, you have to use your own life experiences and reach your own conclusion. But at the same time, I just feel like use your common sense. Use what you see, think about it, and actually base your opinion on that. No one's opinion is wrong. It's your opinion. No one's opinion is wrong. No one's thought process is wrong. I just feel like it's about time that we actually started talking about these things and stop pretending like they don't exist.
Here's a tweet from Bongani Gama who says, Lerato, here's our slogan from now on, nothing about us without us. Right, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much to both of you for your time this morning. Interesting conversation.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, Siki.
Pleasure.
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 For having us, Siki.